Bluff City Media presents the 2 Buck Sports Show. Stepping up to the microphone are your hosts, Drew Gann and Rusty Witten. Now, let's get to the show.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the 2 Buck Sports Show. I am your co-host, Rusty Buckets, tuning in with my co-host, as always, Uncle Buck from Northeast Mississippi. We were just talking about this off air in the green room, Uncle Buck, but we're coming up on 2 years of this tomfoolery and buffoonery going on, man. It's wild to think time has flown that quickly.
Yeah, the old adage, sometimes sayings stick around and they're repeated often because they're true. And time truly does fly when you're having fun. So we've had a blast doing this for 2 years. Grateful for anybody that tunes in. And listen, we don't do it for the money, although it would be nice. Sponsor us.
Yeah.
We don't do it for the fame, although if you love us, let us know. We do it because we're friends and we would be doing this on the phone if we didn't record it and publish it every week. So we truly still do it for fun. And 2 years later, it's still fun.
Cheers. Absolutely, brother. Yeah, cheers to you, man. Enjoying it. It's always fun, especially this time of the year when we can talk about our favorite thing in the world, which is college football. We can talk fantasy football. We do have a little bit of Grizzly news that we'll kind of briefly touch on to start. But before we do that, we always start our show off with the same thing. Two best friends catching up. Our best in our beef of the week. You know, as my colleague would normally say, I'm going to set him up, let him knock him down this week. We're two best friends catching up. You know, we've got pretty good lives, pretty cushy lives, really, all in the grand scheme of things. And so we like to bemoan what is the best and the worst thing that happened to us this week. So, Uncle Buck, what's the best thing that's happened to you since we recorded way back on Monday last week?
Yeah, so it has been feels like 2.5 weeks since we talked to each other last on this video screen. But as I told you guys, I recorded on Monday last week because me and a coworker went on a work trip to Chicago, Illinois.
Anything but a work trip.
Listen, the fact that they paid me for that was just wow, inexplainable. Like Rusty said, we live cushy lives. My life's never been cushier than going to Chicago, Illinois for 3 nights. We caught a Cubs game. We ate at all the hot spots. You know, we had plenty of libations. I mean, it was amazing. I mean, and it was a work trip, so I did do a factory tour. But I mean, you're talking about everybody's like, oh, factory tour. Well, this was right up my alley. This is my job. This is what I love. And so it's the factory tour was almost the highlight. You know, I got to nerd out on things that I'll never get to see or use again. And I just got to play with it. And so Chicago was a 10 out of 10 as a city. It is the polar opposite of anything that you hear people talking about the big cities in North Mississippi. It's like, oh, better be careful. Be careful where you turn. Don't be out at night. Dude, where we stayed in Chicago, right off Michigan Avenue, I'm telling you, I'd walk my dog at night out there. It was the nice part of town. We walked after dinners. I mean, Lake Michigan was beautiful. There's parks everywhere. I mean, we did everything, man, and it was a blast.
Chicago's a great city to do that in, man. It's a good food city. I know y'all had Lou Minalti's, you ate at Harry Carey's, just so much good food. You went to Wrigley. I was so jealous. This fool would be done with work by 1 o'clock every day and then go on a boat tour or go on the Navy Pier or go to a ball game. And meanwhile,
we did not make it to the Navy Pier, but we did go up in the Hancock Tower. We did eat at Billy Goat Pub underneath the expressway there, in the tunnels. We did go eat at Harry Carey's, Lou Minalti. I mean, listen, I could keep going on. We went up in Hancock Tower to the 360 little bar area they've got up there.
Yeah.
Listen,
which I got FaceTime from and got to see all of Chicago. It was cool, man. I'm glad you had a good time.
Yeah.
You deserve some time away. And Mama Bear kept the den safe and there was no casualties.
She was glad to see me.
Yeah, I'm sure.
What about you, Rusty?
Yeah, my best of the week was hanging out with Maggie this past week. We got away for a few days. Not the best circumstances to get away for, as he's been highlighted on here and on the Daily Grind. Her dog, Boone, has been fighting cancer. And so we went down to Auburn for some treatments and stuff. Got a nice little Airbnb right outside of town. Just had a freaking ball, man. Boone was getting treatment, so there was always that kind of hanging over. But
Right.
we got to walk around campus. It was a pretty campus. We went to the little arboretum where they've got these trees and this little babbling creek through, which was awesome. Ate way too much good food, way too much ice cream. I'll say this: Auburn, Alabama is a solid ice cream town.
In Bluebell is like in
Alabama somewhere, but they had this like the Auburn Popcorn Company that had all these flavored popcorn, Hershey ice cream. Dude, I was out, man. They had like the Wendy's, which was cheese and caramel. They had a dill pickle. They had like all these different phenomenal flavors. They had a little on-campus market where they had like a gelato place that had this key lime, and it just crushed it with graham cracker cover, like crust over it. Man, it was just we made lemonade out of lemons for sure, and just spending time with her was fantastic. She, handled the whole situation with grace and courage and strength, and it was cool to see. And we just had a ball, just hanging out, and just walking around Auburn. It was great.
It's one of those things. I've said this many times, and I think everybody knows where I'm coming from. But one of the best, good things can come out of bad things, including funerals or sicknesses, because like that's when everybody gets together. Like you're very intentional about your time. You see family that you haven't seen in a while, and yes, you reminisce. Yes, you're sad in these situations a lot of times, but there's good things that come out of it. It's reconnection. It's it's just being able to live in the past a little bit and reimagine what that life was like, and good things can come out of anything, and that's just something that I live by.
And that's what it was for us. We spent some time reading. We ate really good food. We got to know each other even more, just hanging out and like, being more intentional, not to distract you is not the best way to say it, but just to keep your mind off of it. You're just more intentional to do things, and so we had a really, really good time. The house we stayed in was amazing. It was brand new. It felt like it was a great little Airbnb. So definitely made the best out of it and had a nice little getaway despite the circumstances. So what comes up always comes down. What's the worst thing that's happened to you?
Well, I have a wedding that I'm going to this weekend. That wedding is in Florida.
Oh.
And I don't know if you've watched the news lately, but there's also a hurricane hitting Florida as we speak here at 9:30 p.m. on Thursday night. I'm getting ready to drive to Florida on the back end of a hurricane and for a beach wedding that's happening on Saturday. So I don't know what's going to come of it. I have no idea. I just know that we're loading the family of 6 in the shaggin' wagon, driving to Mobile, Alabama to drop them off with my sister. And then me and Mama is going to drive a couple hours over into the panhandle of Florida, see what the wreckage is like, and try to have a wedding on Saturday night.
They named it after Pam Beasley's mom, and she's coming with a whole tear after having her heart broke by Michael Scott, apparently.
Yeah, she never wanted to go skydiving, but she's going to wreak havoc on Florida, like most old people do.
Absolutely, that kind of tracks.
So
my beef of the week, man, my beef of the week's gonna be kind of backhanded. Like I love the cooler weather that we're getting right now. Like today has been beautiful, and that's how it always is. Like it's always like really nice leading up to a hurricane, and then the next couple of days are really nice after as that low pressure system pulls the humidity out. But I know it's just a tease, man. I know the heat's coming back. This is fall number 3 in Memphis. You usually get about 5, and so we got more hot weather coming, and so like I'm enjoying it, but on the same time, it's like, man, like it's gonna be hot again in like a week. I'm gonna be sweating to death all over again. Even though we're technically in the bird months, we're supposed to start cooling off. It's still going to be hot. So I'm enjoying it, but also like knowing what's coming. It's still going to be muggy at least for another month.
Yeah, we're probably going to get snow in like April this year.
The way it feels, for sure.
Well, that's our best and beef. That's how we start off every single $2 sports show. We're 2 friends. We hang out. We want to share just little bitty snippets of our lives with you guys. And we appreciate you bearing with us through this. But we're getting to sport. Rusty, take us to our first sports topic.
Yeah, so before we get there, I do want to hype up bluffcitymedia.co. Leave the M for the M. It's just bluffcity.co. It's where you can hang out with us, other great content creators, the Anthony Sains Show. G5 Classified this week is going to absolutely slap with the UNLV news of Matthew Sluka bowing out of his season, redshirting because the NIL money didn't hit. His running back then quickly followed suit. Like it's setting a weird precedent. G5 Classifieds all over it as they talk about those group of 5 teams. Check out Night Court with Brevin Knight and Rob Fisher. Like, just so much good information, content on this network, all found at bluffcitymedia.co. Come hang with us there. Let us know that you're there. We'll pay for your first month. If you screenshot it, send it to Uncle Buck and I, we'll cover your $5 first month. Always said that.
We will
always stick to it. Drew, I hadn't been able to use this graphic in a while, but we're going to briefly throw it up because we do have some Memphis Grizzly news. Three things, technically. The Ja 2's released today. We've got brand new shoes out for Ja. They dropped this morning at 9 o'clock Eastern, or 10 o'clock Eastern, 9 o'clock Central. We got the Tony Allen jersey retirement was announced this week. And then you and I decided we were going to get tickets. And I said, no, let's wait because I get a discount as a season pass holder. I just couldn't wait. The more I sat there, the more nervous I got. And I'm like, what if they don't have tickets? What if it's, gets sold out? So I bought tickets on Tuesday to make sure that we could get in. And then the announcement as of this recording this morning, as of you're listening yesterday morning, of Derrick Rose retiring from basketball, coming full circle, starting his big boy adult basketball career as a Memphis Tiger, retiring as a Memphis Grizzlies. So not a lot of Grizz news, but just a few topics to kind of touch on briefly. Any burning thoughts about any of those?
Not really. I don't have anything on the Ja 2s. Some of the colorways have won me over a little bit. I'm interested to see like what they feel like because it feels like a shoe that's going to be more comfortable. The other ones are comfortable, but they feel like basketball shoes. These feel like, in my opinion, just from looking at them, looks like they may feel a little bit more comfortable for streetwear.
Yeah.
The Tony Allen news, I mean, it's what we've been waiting on for like 3 years now. I mean, he found himself in some trouble, and it got postponed, but like now it's perfect. It's going to be March 15th. That's a Saturday against the Miami Heat, and I could not be more excited. We got to see Zebo's record be retired, and we saw Mark's jersey get retired. And so now we've got 2 more to go, and it starts March 15th with TA, who is my favorite Grizzly of all time. It kind of shaped the way that the type of basketball player that I love the most. It started with TA. I love the glue guys. I love the guys that put everything out there and know their role and excel in it. And that's why I love TA. He's a Memphian. He's from Memphis. He is Memphis. Like, I love TA. I don't want to hear anybody say anything at all negatively about TA in this moment.
Nope.
I will block and report anybody who besmirches the father. And Derrick Rose, like, man, it was time.
It was. With TA, like for me, it's Zebo, Mark, TA, but without TA, you don't have any of it because heart and soul of those 4-4 teams that paved the way for what we have now. Such a great, quote machine from all heart, grit, grind, first team all defense, slapping the floor. Like you said, that glue guy that every top player in the last 20 years names the defenders that were the toughest to play against and the ones they least wanted to play against. And none of them get past number 3 or 4 without mentioning Tony Allen, just because the way he played defense was a dog. And if Kobe Bryant, one of the greatest scorers of all time, and Kevin Durant, one of the greatest scorers of all time, say you're the toughest defender they ever faced. Kobe played Jordan. Like, these guys played these big-time defenders. Right. And they still mention Tony first. I don't care. You can argue with a wall for like go argue with your mama. I don't care. Tony Allen's 9 deserves to be in the Raptors of the FedEx Forum because what he did for our team, for our city, and for the culture of the Memphis Grizzlies to pave the way for Ja and Vince and Jaren and the team that we have now.
That's absolutely correct. And Luke made a good point on the Daily Grind. This is a jersey retirement is not the NBA Hall of Fame. It is not the NBA Top 75. Jersey retirement is what you mean to the city. It is it is an award bestowed to you by an organization, not by a panel of journalists who vote for Hall of Fame. It is your city and what you mean to your organization. And there is not a single player that's played for any organization, sans Kobe, MJ, LeBron, that's meant more to their city, their franchise than Tony Allen meant to Memphis and the Grizzlies.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, again, coining that. So the phrases and being the glue. We'll be there on March 15th to watch them play the Heat. It's going to be a great game. It's going to be a great experience. It'll be a great party again. I hope to have all four of the guys there again. It's going to be awesome. Cannot wait to be there.
The Timberwolves are not playing that day. And
he'll be there.
Let's
go.
To be there.
Absolutely.
You know, like Bart Scott once said, can't wait.
Can't wait. And on that note, we're going to transition to college football, baby. It's back. We're back. Love college football. Happy to be here. Briefly, like this Luka news, like this is setting like a precedent. Like Rashada for Florida was kind of the first one to bow out of a team because of NIL discrepancies, but he never actually played a game. You know, right. Luka for UNLV has ran the ball really well. UNLV is 3-0. He's he's completing 43% of his passes. So he's not exactly throwing the ball all over the yard, but he's got him heading in a good direction. Right. There's conflicting reports, right? UNLV is saying that he came asking for more money with his agent. He's saying that they guaranteed him $100K in the recruiting process that never came through. He's not the first person to go to Las Vegas and come back a little bit poorer.
It's true.
And so I feel like, you know, there's two sides to every story. The truth is somewhere in the middle, but it's setting a dangerous precedent, right? Because within 48 hours, his running back did the same thing. Creed Whittemore from Mississippi State did the same thing. There's been about 3 or 4 guys that have said, hey, I'm just going to redshirt this year and I'm going to try again next year. It's setting a weird precedent that's just kind of, it feels like something's going to come out of this.
Yeah, eventually, I've said this many times before, there's going to have to be some legitimacy to these NIL deals because the schools are exposed and the players are exposed, but it's not like a mutual agreement that ties anybody to anybody. You know, a player can bolt after getting paid and there's nothing that can be done about it, or a school cannot honor their commitment to pay a player and then there's nothing the player can do about it. And so this one's a little fishy though, because Sluka, it did come out that during the season, after they got off this hot start, UNLV is one of the good stories in football. Barry Odom's doing an incredible job for that program. But he has he's got a representative like middle of the season. And so to me, it's like, I don't know. This sounds like somebody that's gotten in the player's ear, and now they kind of feel like they've, you know, got something that's worth something, and it's worth more than what they're being given right now. And so I don't want to accuse anybody of anything, but it doesn't feel as straightforward as the story is, where I was promised $100K and I've gotten 3, but this guy's kind of got some representation that was a guy came up to him, was like, let me represent you. And then now he's like, I need some more money.
Yeah. You know, Patrick Jones in our fantasy group chat made a great point. It was probably a typo on that text. The recruiter probably typed 100 and accidentally hit a K afterwards, and Sluka is getting upset about it. But it's weird. Like, I agree. I don't know if it's like a contract situation, if there's like some guarantees, if it's like a installment type payment to get these guys to stick around. But there's going to have to be. I feel like this is kind of opening the door for some accountability to come, both for the program and the player, to own up to what they're committing to.
Yeah, and I think it's beneficial for all parties involved. You look at the Jaden Rashada thing, like Jaden Rashada never even suited up for Florida, and he was like the first bidding war in NIL, and he's suing the University of Florida. Yep. And so, like, there needs to be a paper trail. There needs to be a legal binding document. And I believe there needs to be a year served with benchmarks, like when you get paid out. This whole thing, just like when we work for our paychecks, like, you know, you work and then you get paid. You know, there's got to be some kind of benchmark there that qualifies you for payment. And if not, then you know,
and there's got to be tiers to it. There's got to be tiers to it. You can't make somebody guarantee they'll stay longer than 3 years if they decide to go pro, because that's what you can do after your junior year in college football. But like, if you sign for X amount, you're committing to a year. X amount is 2 years. X amount is 3 years. We have a tiered sign-on bonus program where if you take X, Y, and Z as sign-on bonuses, they come with a 1, 2, and 3 year commitment that you have to pay back the full amount if you break and leave early. Something like that would benefit both university and the player, because it's guaranteed the player's going to get paid. and the university is guaranteed that they're going to get some play out of this kid.
Yeah, that's true. And I get that logic. I just don't think that that's necessarily the right way to do it because not every position is going to get paid the same amount of money, and not every school can pay the same for every player.
Like, yeah,
and
make it like a percentage, make it a tier system. Like, there's ways you can make it work.
I think it's like you do it like an incentive based thing. Like you've got your base pay, but then like if you start, you get this. If you know,
I mean, that's what the NFL does. That's how you get guaranteed contracts in football and professional baseball. Like you got your guaranteed money, like you're guaranteed $40 million, but the other $20 million are incentives. So guarantee them an X amount to come, and then you have incentive laden to make up the rest.
Yeah, I think what it is like you let the market determine your worth out of high school or even out of the transfer portal or whatever. But then you've got to be active on the active roster, whether hurt or healthy. You've got to be a part of the team, and then every 3 games you get a quarter of your check or whatever. And I don't know. Listen, there's people much smarter than me that's got to be able to figure this out. Yeah. But something's got to go.
Something's got to give. These players that are real, these players that are not stepping up. Like, what a great segue into one of our newer segments where we talk about what is real and what is counterfeit in college football. We know that you can get real dollar bills, that you can get real money. You can also be handed fake money in transactions. You'll never know until you go to use it again. And so just like money, there can be real players and teams, and there can be counterfeit players and teams. They're going to let you down in the biggest moment. So I've got 4 things that I think are real or counterfeit. And I want to know what your thoughts on them are, Uncle Buck.
All right, hit me with it.
All right,
I've had a special guest. I don't know if you've seen.
My
daughter has walked out of her bedroom, and I'm trying to get her back into it. So
I can tell you're a little bit distracted there. So I was trying to milk our walk up here as much as I could. All right, so I've got 4 things. One of them is going to be a little bit longer. I'm going to rapid fire on some teams. So first up, Drew, this one's going to hit near and dear to your heart on 2 levels. But one, your boy Luke Altmaier has the Illinois Fighting Illini at 3-0, playing good football with their best football still ahead of them. They've got some massive games coming up, including tilts against Ohio State, Oregon, Michigan. They've got an opportunity to make some noise in the Big Ten. Is this Illinois team real or counterfeit? Their schedule hasn't been the most daunting, but they got a big win over an up-and-coming Nebraska team with the Patrick Mahomes clone at quarterback.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on Illinois and Luke Altmaier?
I believe it's counterfeit. Like you said, the schedule just doesn't kind of suit them right now. If you've got to play Ohio State and you've got to play Michigan, like they're not up to snuff for that physicality yet. Luke has been a great story. He's from Starkville High School. He spent a year or 2 at Ole Miss as a backup. He lost the job to Jackson Dart, went to Illinois, and has kind of exceeded my expectation for him after year 1. Like Brett Bielema, all jokes aside, has done a really good job developing him, and the offensive staff there and the quarterback's coach done a really good job there. And they're not asking him to do too much, but he is running that offense at a very high level. But if you're asking me what if it's real or counterfeit, that they're going to make some noise, like postseason noise, like no, that's counterfeit. I don't buy it. That Nebraska team is good. Dylan Raiola is good, but Dylan Raiola looked like a freshman at times in that game. In some critical moments, it looked like a freshman. And
I do need to backtrack a little bit. They don't play Ohio State. So they're ranked teams. They play Penn State this Saturday at 6:30, which I'm super stoked about. I'd love nothing more than them to go to Penn State and kick their butt. But then they've got Purdue, Michigan comes to Illinois. Then they play at Oregon, and then it finishes with Minnesota, Michigan State, Rutgers, and Northwestern. So Rutgers isn't kind of they're decent, but like their big games are in the next 3 weeks.
But I put Illinois in the class of Big Ten school with probably with Rutgers and with Indiana. Like Indiana is shocking a lot of people right now. They're one of the 5 or 6 schools in FBS right now to have a top 10 offense and defense. That coach that came from James Madison is just a rock star, apparently.
Absolutely.
And Indiana looks great, but I don't feel like any of those teams are actually going to compete for
fair
playoff spot.
All right, Uncle Buck has spoken. Illinois is a counterfeit. We're going to stay in the Big
love
10.
you though, Lauren. Lauren's going to come at me hard. I do love you, and it's no shade. There's no insults in saying you're not as good as Ohio State.
Yeah, I mean, I still think this Illinois team could be. I mean, there's no reason they couldn't be competing for one of the major bowls, a New Year's Six, a major, Capital One, Citrus Bowl, something like that.
9-3, yeah,
absolutely. And you upset one of your ranked teams. Say you beat Penn State this weekend, like you've got a good shot, and it's a good season.
I'll change my tune. Sure. I'll change my tune if they beat Penn State this weekend.
Yeah, this is a watermark game. You can go to Happy Valley and come out with a win. You'll get some high praise on the 2 Buck Sports Show next week. May even find yourself in a top 12. But anyway, we're going to stay in the Big Ten for 2 more because the Big Ten is curious. We know the SEC is probably going to have at a minimum 4 or 5 teams in the top 12. The ACC is probably going to have 1. The Big 12 is probably going to have 1. Yeah. What does the Big Ten look like? Because you've got 2 other teams that I'm curious your thoughts on because one of them has been very up and down. But don't look now. The Michigan Wolverines are 3-1, and it's a shaky 3-1. They got absolutely plowed by Texas, only to come back and beat a good USC team. I don't know what to make of Michigan, Drew. Are they real or counterfeit?
I still think they're counterfeit, and I think they're counterfeit. I think there's probably 2 teams out of the Big Ten that make the playoff, at least 2. But right now, I can't find a case for where that Michigan offense places them above Oregon or above Penn State. They've got an elite defense. Dylan Edwards is really good at running back, but they just went to a new quarterback with Alex Orji that played against USC, and the offense did tick up a little bit. But right now, I don't really know what USC is either. That loss against Texas, turns out it's probably going to be, if they go 11-1 this year, you're going to look back at that game and be like, dang, Texas is just really that good.
Yeah.
And Michigan figured out the quarterback play. So it's out there, but if you're asking me here going into week 5 and in relation to a playoff spot, I'm saying counterfeit.
All right, Uncle Buck has spoken. Michigan is counterfeit. One more Big Ten team before we talk group of 5. The Oregon Ducks are sitting 3-0. All of their football is ahead of them. They've got a really good opportunity to go win the Big Ten in their first season there. They play UCLA, former rival, this weekend in Pasadena. Terrible. They play Sparty, comes to Eugene the next weekend. Terrible. Then we'll find out. They host the Ohio State Buckeyes at Autzen Stadium. I guarantee you that they will have game day there. That will be a massive football game. We'll know on October the 12th what the Ducks are made of. Then they finish out with Purdue, Illinois, Michigan, Maryland, Wisconsin, and Washington. So they've got an opportunity on October the 12th to take the Big Ten by the horns. So what do you think? Are they real or are they counterfeit? Not for a top 12 because we feel confident they're going to be there, but is this team good enough to win the Big Ten and make the top 4?
Listen, I mean, yes, they're good enough. That's real. I do believe that they're good enough to win this conference. At this point, I don't really think that bad wins are wins. Boise State is good. Yes, they probably should have beaten them bigger, but low margin of victory wins are still wins.
Yeah, so there's no style points in college football.
Right. And so I think that they're real. I do think that their schedule, I don't know about a playoff spot if you lose to Ohio State because your schedule is just not that good, but they're in a really good conference. Yeah. But you're looking at, you do play at Michigan. So if you split those games, lose against Ohio State, win at Michigan, you're probably in. But at that point,
you got to have teams convincing. You can't be in a dogfight with Washington. You can't get in a shootout with Indiana. You got to go win those games convincingly.
Yeah. So I believe they're real. The question is, do I think that they can win the Big Ten? Yes, that's real.
All right. So we've got a counterfeit Illinois and Michigan team and a real Oregon team. Uncle Buck, I'm on a rapid fire. I've got 6 group of 5 teams that I just want off the cuff, off the gut, minimal comment. Just tell me real or counterfeit.
Okay.
First up, Liberty, undefeated. Real or counterfeit?
I'm going to say counterfeit. there's some other teams I'm sure you're going to get to that I think that is better than Liberty.
And we're thinking about this in light of the 12th spot, right? Because they're guaranteed the 11, 12 seeds. So we're thinking in light of the 12 seeds. So we got Liberty as counterfeit. Navy, midshipman, 3-0 with a big win over Memphis.
Counterfeit, no chance.
Army, they're thrashing Temple as of this recording, 3-0 as well, looking at 4-0.
No chance. I'm not going to believe a Service Academy team is going to run the table.
There you go. Washington State, the Cougs, undefeated, hold their destiny in their hand.
Yeah, that one's interesting because they've got a big matchup against Boise this Saturday. Weekend. Tomorrow, when you listen to this, that's big. Their quarterback, Crazy Legs, they call him, is dynamic. Yeah. I'm pulling for the boys.
Yeah, the fight Mike Leach's, the flags at game day. Like, I would love to see Wazoo get that 12th spot. I would. Yeah, but that's not who I have in my top 12. Spoiler alert. It's one of these teams, but it's not that one. Boise State, they got one loss against a good Oregon team, but they got a lot of good football ahead of them that they could get right back in the mix. So they real or counterfeit for that 12th seed.
I'm going to say, like, with a convincing win over Washington State, that they're real. Yeah, they do have one loss, but I don't believe that a 3-point loss at Autzen Stadium in Eugene, Oregon should be held against any Group of 5 team.
Yeah, so, I mean, especially if they win the Big Ten.
There's a lot of teams right now, if you're just looking at it, there's a lot of undefeated G5 teams that I would put below a one-loss Boise team.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. And then lastly, the James Madison Dukes. Shout out to the Scott family. Kellen Scott, a famous alum, friend of ours, friend of the podcast. The Dukes went to Chapel Hill and put a 70 burger on Matt Brown and the Tar Heels. Just absolutely boat raced them.
Yeah.
Like, every time I looked up, there was a highlight of one of their receivers racing down the field for a 60-yard touchdown. They're undefeated. They couldn't go to a bowl last year, their first year in FBS, but they can this year. Are they real or counterfeit?
They're real. And I don't think it should be shocking to anybody. I mean, can you think of any other time, and I know you can't, the answer is no, where any team jumped to the Power 5 level, to the D1 level and dominated in multiple sports? I mean, they were really good in basketball this year too.
They made the tournament. I mean,
Yeah. And so, the Dukes have got it figured out. You thought that maybe they would take a step back because the current Indiana coach came from James Madison in this last offseason. But no, they're still chugging. And to go to Chapel Hill and hang 70 on Mac Brown is just absurd.
That's something. Now, their schedule is weak. Their biggest remaining games are a one-loss Coastal Carolina and a one-loss App State. Those are big rivalry games. They're in the Sun Belt. And I think if you can continue to win these games convincingly, JMU has a real chance at that 12 seed. You know, they were dominant at the Division II level forever. You talk about teams made that jump. The University of North Alabama was kind of a similar story. They won a dozen national championships over the course of from 1990 until they made the jump to FBS, and they are atrocious. They cannot hang, man. They're not good. JMU just took dominance and continue. I think they had 1-2 losses last year. They beat the absolute dog crap out of Coastal and App State in their first year last year. I might agree. JMU might be real.
Yeah.
That's our real and counterfeit college football segment. And we're going to do that every week. We're going to let y'all know who you should be rooting for and who you think is fake. So, Drew, real quick before we get to your Dunzo list, the coaching hot seat meter. Did the needle move on any coaches this past week for you in college football one way or the other?
Not particularly. No, I don't think so. I've got something I'm going to get to. I'm going to harp on for one last time in a minute. I'll save mine for that. But no, I don't think there's really anything this week that made me feel one way or the other about coaching hot seats. I know Brian Kelly is starting to get a little sour down in Baton Rouge. But that's just kind of a personality thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I agree. That's kind of where I've kind of landed the same area. I think if anything, like maybe some seats are cooling for me. I'm blanking at the Michigan's head coach. What's his?
That is.
He's the assistant that got promoted. This is what happens. We do $2 after dark. We forget names, but the Michigan coach after that Texas
Ron
game.
Moore.
Thank you, Sharon Moore. I'm thinking like he's there's no way he survives the year. And then he goes and he beats USC, and I think his seat's cooled a little bit. I think Shane Beamer, I talked about him a couple weeks ago. I think he's doing it. They're 3-1, and like they're a bogus roughing the passer, personal foul call away from upsetting LSU and being 4-0. I mean, that team is – they're not going to make a splash in the SEC, but they have the best pure pass rusher in the country, and they might be saving Shane Beamer's job. So those would be my two, Sharon Moore and Shane Beamer's seats getting a little bit cooler. As we transition to the Dunzo list, based on what you told me to put on this graphic, I think I know which coach you think is in hot water.
Well, I'm going to surprise you a little bit because I don't necessarily think that. So, as everybody knows, I've had a lot of fun. My Dunzo list, I'll just go ahead and put it up here. A Dunzo list. Oh,
I didn't make it transparent.
No, Rusty. Jeez, my goodness. All right, well, here's our Dunzo list. You can see over here on the left, you see Auburn and Hugh Freeze. Now I'm going to get rid of it because our producer didn't do the right thing.
They gave us the keys to the spaceship, man.
Yeah. So, Auburn and Hugh Freeze are on my Dunzo list. And as everybody knows, Ole Miss has played a terrible first 4 weeks, a community college schedule for Ole Miss. And so in the time that we've had off, quote unquote, off playing no names, I've found a lot of joy in the demise of Hugh Freeze and what he's done, particularly in the media, with consistently throwing anybody and anyone under the bus. If he thought that the jerseys were a problem, that manager would be under the bus. Like anybody is under the bus. I don't know if you saw the quotes this week. There was a lot of them. Look at us. Producer extraordinaire now, Rusty Bucket.
Something like that.
He threw his quarterback under the bus again. He said that if we just found somebody that complete the passes, he looked back and he said, of all the play calls, we only got one play call wrong. The rest of them are on those bogus quarterbacks. Like, it is just disgusting to me, the things that he just throws out there in the media and how he doesn't take care of his team. He then said that I love Stan Pittman, but we would have beaten Arkansas 9 times out of the next 9 times. So we're virtually saying we'd beat Arkansas 9 out of 10 times. Like, no, bro. Like, it's just not true. And it's time for you to take accountability. And I've had a lot of fun at Hugh's expense. It's one of my favorite things to do is to have fun at Hugh's expense. But I've been doing this primarily because I don't have any Ole Miss stuff to talk about. Ole Miss has played nobody. And so in the time that I should have been spending watching Ole Miss and dissecting Ole Miss, I have been talking about Hugh Freeze. And so I'm done with that. Ole Miss plays Kentucky. We've got 8 straight SEC games coming down the pike to close the year. And I will speak no more of Auburn and Hugh Freeze because I'm now focusing on my Rebels.
There you go. It's getting real. That's Drew's Dunzo list. It's the list you don't want to be on. It's like detention when you're in grade school. It's the last place you want to be. Uncle Buck keeping it real for us on his Dunzo list. So we're going to wrap up college football with 2 things. We're going to look at how we did last week against the spread and then update you on our college football playoff predictions before we talk NFL football and land this plane. So last week, I went 3-2. I picked Tennessee, Utah, and Arkansas. All 3 won and covered. It was a good weekend for me. My illustrious co-host went 2-3 last week. He had Tennessee and Florida beating the Mississippi State Bulldogs, missing on USC, OK State, and Auburn. That brings our total. Don't call it a comeback because I've been here the whole time. Uncle Buck still has a decent lead at 10-6, but I am 8-8. Claw my way back into this thing, baby. Here we go. We coming back, baby. And
2 games out, yeah.
The train keeps rolling this week. I've got 5 games we're going to pick against the spread. For those of you who are new to this, you could pick a team to win outright. You could pick a team to cover, or you could pick a team to lose, but lose by less than the money amount. So we'll start with a big matchup. That's an ACC matchup, even though Notre Dame doesn't want to claim that they're in the ACC other than in any sport but football. They're in the ACC, everything but football, but I digress. The Louisville Cardinals travel to South Bend to face Notre Dame at home, where Notre Dame is a 6.5-point home favorite in what is a pretty big matchup for the ACC with two top 20 teams. I think Notre Dame's 15th. Louisville might be 18th, something like that. It's a big early season tilt for the ACC. Uncle Buck, are you taking Notre Dame or are you taking Louisville?
I kind of want to just upset the apple cart here and take the Cardinal. Take the Cardinals. You've got me messed up thinking
I know, I
Stanford
said
over here.
Cardinal. I know.
One Cardinal is Stanford. The Cardinals are Louisville. So I like Jeff Brom. I like Louisville. Notre Dame has gotten so one-dimensional. Like Riley Leonard can't throw the ball anymore, apparently. And so Louisville's kind of the hot team right now. Notre Dame has been fine.
They play good defense.
The loss to Northern Illinois, but give me the Cardinal. Let's be cute. I get 5.5 points when I pick Louisville. Yeah. So I'll take it.
Yeah, same. I'm taking Louisville. I'm out on Notre Dame. They play good defense, but Riley Leonard's biggest issue at quarterback is he has to throw the ball, and he's not very good at that. Next up, we've got Arkansas and Texas A&M. Texas A&M is a 4-point home favorite at Kyle Field. Mike Elko has that team playing good, inspired football. They have one loss in a very, close game to that same Notre Dame team in the first week of the season. Arkansas comes to town as a bit of an enigma. Taylor Green can be so good, and for as good as he can also be so bad, and how he can miss guys that are wide open is beyond me. I think Arkansas is kind of at a crossroads of where their season is going to go, and I think they lose on the road. I think A&M runs the ball effectively enough. I think they play good enough defense. I'm going to take the Aggies to cover at home and win by a touchdown.
Yeah, I like that too. A&M is a more complete team. Arkansas is feisty, but I don't really – they seem just kind of hot and cold, Like Taylor Green is fine, but you can see like the expressions from the sideline there, from the reads that he's making. It just – you can tell that they're frustrated with some of the throws he makes or doesn't see, or throws he doesn't make, and he relies on his athleticism a lot. A&M always has a pretty good, solid defense with a lot of 5-star players. I think it's a kind of a low-scoring game, and if it's kind of in the trenches kind of game, like a low-scoring competitive game, I don't really like Taylor Green.
I don't either. So we're both big on the Aggies at Kyle Field. All right, we've got our first big SEC matchup at the top. The Georgia Bulldogs come to Tuscaloosa, where they are a 2-point favorite. It's been an eon since Alabama was underdog at a home SEC game. I believe I saw where it's been about 12 years. Then when last time they were a home underdog in an SEC game. Dogs come in on the heels of a iffy game at Lexington. Could be peeking ahead on their schedule. Alabama still trying to figure out their identity on offense other than just throw the ball to Ryan Williams. Uncle Buck, are you taking the Dogs to win? With a 2-point for those, 2-point is essentially a pick 'em. That means if this was on a neutral field, this was played in Atlanta or Dallas or wherever, then it's a pick 'em. It's even. But they're picking Georgia on the road simply because Vegas views them as a better team. This number started at 2.5. It's down to 2.
Now, let me. So if this was played on a neutral field, it would be Georgia minus 4.5. Because Alabama gets 2 points with it being at home.
Thank you.
So they think that Georgia's 4.5 points better on a neutral field. I disagree. Give me the Tide. Give me the 2.5 points. There's just something that, you brought up on Real or Counterfeit last week or 2 weeks ago about Georgia in relation to the multiple
Off-field.
speeding violations, off-field stuff. At that point, I wasn't really sure, but I think this Georgia team is not as good as past Georgia teams, and I'm not going to equate it to that, really. I'm just going to equate it to the fact that they send about 30 people into the NFL every year, and at some point, it has to stack up.
Alabama.
And this Alabama team's good. I don't think they're great either, but I don't think that this Georgia team is world beaters right now. If I were to rank them, I don't know that I'd have them number 2 in the country, and And so give me Alabama, especially since I'm getting points in Tuscaloosa. Give me Alabama. My heart tells me that I want Georgia to win because I want Ole Miss to beat an undefeated Georgia team. But I don't think that Georgia's 2.5 points better than Alabama.
I hate that we're picking the same, but I'm in the same camp. I just can't pick Georgia. I think Alabama has every shot to win this. Kalen DeBoer is a winner. He's won big games everywhere he's been. Jalen Milroe is a player. He's going to figure it out. Again, Ryan Williams is an absolute stud at 17 years old. And Alabama's defense is figuring it out. They went to Wisconsin and punched them in the mouth.
Yeah.
Again, it's Wisconsin, but they're figuring it out. They figured it out late against South Florida. They flexed on an inferior team last year, and that's what you do. Great teams beat the teams they're supposed to as they're supposed to. And that's what they did last week is they went to Madison and beat the brakes off of Wisconsin. And so I think that team's got a lot of confidence. Their defense is playing very well. We saw last week what a good, hypothetical good defense in Kentucky could do, a relatively good defense in Kentucky could do against Georgia. Give me the Tide at home, man. I think they pull the upset and they upset Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs.
Yeah, both of these teams, the hardest game that either team has played so far is Georgia at Kentucky. Like, I don't believe in Luke Fickell's Wisconsin team that I thought Alabama's B team could have beat them. I think it's important to me to see what Milroe looks like in regards to like him scrambling out of the pocket. He's got such a proclivity to just chucking it. And he's got a great deep ball, and Ryan Williams loves to go run down a deep ball. But against Georgia, it's probable that they're going to take away or try their best to take away their number one option being Ryan.
Yeah.
And so
Ryan Williams.
So I just think that Jalen Milroe's legs is going to be the difference. And if he'll make his one or two reads and then just take off, like he's so dynamic, and it's not something that he's done yet this year.
Yeah, Georgia will run a 2-deep safety, and they'll shade one to the side of the field that Ryan Williams is on to take away that deep ball. Can Jalen Milroe beat them underneath will be the question. Last two, we'll move through these kind of quickly. He's only
got 156 yards rushing this year. Jalen Milroe, that is.
Oh, wow.
So,
yeah. They just keeping him in the pocket a little bit more this year. Last two, we've got Oklahoma coming to the Plains at Auburn, facing Drew's fighting Hugh Freeze's. Oklahoma's a 2-point favorite at Auburn. Oklahoma's missing. I think I saw where they had 6 wide receivers out for this game. It's their first true SEC road game. Tennessee came to Norman last week and beat them pretty soundly, worse than what the score really showed, because Oklahoma can't move the football. They don't Jackson Arnold is being compared to DJ Ugalele, just absolutely just not able to carry that offense. The only team that might be worse is Auburn's offense, and Peyton Thorne and whoever they put out at quarterback is not good. I think Oklahoma gets their first SEC win as an SEC member going to the Plains, beating Auburn. It doesn't matter if they're missing 8, 9, 10 receivers. I just think that Oklahoma defense is good. They kept Tennessee relatively in check for most of that game. Nico had a few things here and there, and they ran the ball well. But I think that defense is good enough to put the clamps on a bad Auburn offense, and their offense can squeak out enough points to beat Auburn by more than 2 points. I think Oklahoma wins by a touchdown.
Yeah, I agree. And now we're not doing this on purpose.
No.
But, you thought that Tennessee should have beaten Oklahoma by worse. I disagree. I thought Oklahoma had a heck of an effort. They came out there and played hard. They gave Tennessee everything they wanted on the defensive side of the ball.
Football.
The problem with Oklahoma is they couldn't quit turning the ball over. And despite all the turnovers that their offense gave Tennessee, the defense only gave up 25 points. And against Tennessee, that is saying a lot. So I was really impressed with Oklahoma and the physicality they played with against Tennessee. And so I think just in a game that is physical, if you want physicality, I want Oklahoma in this matchup. I know they are going to a new quarterback, a true freshman that can run. I mean, the dude is just dynamic. And so I think that Oklahoma wins. I think Oklahoma wins by 2 scores. I think that this Auburn team just wants so badly to quit on Hugh Freeze. I don't know how you can keep listening to him after every week.
Yeah.
He throws somebody under the bus, in particular the quarterbacks and the leaders of this team. Like, I don't understand how you keep getting inspired by a guy who's so quickly throwing
out on you
their star players or most important players under the bus.
Last one, really quick. Oklahoma State at Kansas State. Kansas State 5-point home favorite. This is a big battle in the Big 12. Who you got, Drew? Wildcats, Cowboys?
Listen, this is a toss-up for me. I don't know, if I'm being honest with you. I know that BYU just smoked. I want to say Florida State, then I want to say, Kansas State. Yes. BYU smoked Kansas last week. I'm not really impressed with both of them. I know they've both kind of been really cute picks. Where's the game at?
It's at Manhattan, Kansas.
I guess give me the Wildcats then. Alan Bowman is like 75 years old playing quarterback, and they have not figured out a way somehow to feature Ollie Gordon in a dominant way. He hasn't put up the numbers. He hasn't been as efficient. He's not going to win a Heisman, and he's not even close.
Yeah.
And so without Ollie Gordon, like I'm just give me the home team. Give me Kansas State.
And I'm going to take Oklahoma State just for some parity, just for some difference here. We have like one, at least one that's going to be different. I'll take the Cowboys because somewhere in Kansas, there's a beefy 5-layer burrito that's still pretty nervous, but I'll leave that one alone. I want to update my college football playoff predictions first. I'll go first this week. I believe you went first last week. It's been 2 weeks. I don't remember. Mine's first in the list, so we're going to roll with it. All right, so no real movement at the top. I got Texas, Ohio State, Utah, Miami as my top 4, but I did some jockeying in some positions. My group of 5, I kind of hinted at it earlier, JMU. I was impressed with what they did at Chapel Hill. I think they can run the table and be that group of 5 team. That's going to be a big win to go win on the road like that. Give me the Dukes at 12, playing Georgia at 5. I think Georgia can figure out a way to win this weekend against Alabama. If they can, they keep that 5. If they can't, swap them with Alabama. We'll move them down. The 8-9, I now have Ole Miss at 8, move them up from the 9 spot, and I move Oregon back to the 9 spot from the 6 spot. These two teams are good, high prolific offenses and can score in bunches. The 6-11, I have Missouri falling back after struggling with Vanderbilt, facing the Tennessee Vols, who I moved up to the 6 spot. And then there it is. I snuck the Louisville Cardinals in at the 10 spot. I think they upset Notre Dame this weekend. I think they can run the table in the ACC. Could come out with only 1 loss, and I think that might be good enough to get them into the top 12, into the college football playoffs. So some jockeying of positions for mine. I've got 2 new teams in my top 12 in the JMU Dukes and the Louisville Cardinals. So that's my updated top 12. Uncle Buck, hit us with yours.
Yeah, so last week, just to remind everybody, I had Texas, Ohio State, Miami, and Kansas State as my conference champions that would get the top 4 seeds and a bye. This did change a little bit for me because of the reason why I just said. So with Kansas State losing, I'm just losing to BYU. I think that the Big 12 right now is a one-bid league. So I put BYU in here. I don't really know what else to do. They're 1-0 in the Big 10. They've got a dominant win against who everybody thought was one of the best teams in the Big 12. So I got BYU in here. A lot of the stuff we're going to just figure out as we go, After that, there was a little bit of jockeying. I kept Georgia at number 5, although just not really convinced, but based on just history, I feel like they've earned the 5 spot. Number 6, Ole Miss. This stayed the same for me. Number 7, Tennessee stayed the same for me. And number 8, Alabama stayed the same for me. Yes. And number 9, I moved up Oregon. I think that the second best Big 10 team will make the playoff depending on just who that is. I believe right now it's Oregon based on their schedule, based on their talent. I just think Oregon will be there. Number 10, Penn State. I think that if Drew Aller is good enough, then they're going to win a lot of games. And number 11, Indiana. So for reasons I said on this show, this is a cute pick for me. I'm just going to be honest with you guys. They are one of, I believe, 5 or 6 teams that are top 10 in the nation in offense and defense. And Ole Miss is also one of those teams. Just, well, not for nothing kind of plug here. So I jumped Indiana but over Missouri. Missouri having a very close win in overtime at home against the Commodores of Vanderbilt just scares me. I'm not really ready. I wasn't really as high on them going into the season as everybody, including Buckets across the screen from me here. And so I'm being a little cute because, I mean, you really can't prove anybody wrong at this point, right?
Yeah.
Number 12, Washington State. Oh, Crazy Legs is good. I like him. I like the story of Washington State more than I like the team. So I'm really just rooting for them at this point. They've got a big game against Boise this weekend. I can't wait to see what happens with that. And the fact that Washington State could make the playoff after their conference mates just leave them with nothing.
It's huge.
I would love nothing more than for the Cougs, for Mike Leach, to make it to the college football playoff.
Absolutely. Last thing on college football, we'll quickly transition to the NFL. Talked about the Army Knights earlier as a group of 5 team being counterfeit. They, listen to this, they played Temple tonight of this recording, beat them 42-14. The rushing stats, Temple rushed for -5 yards on 22 attempts. Again, they take sacks into consideration, but -5 yards on 22 attempts. On 57 rushing attempts, Army ran for 417 yards, averaging 7.3 yards per carry. That is an absolute bully beatdown. Take their lunch money.
It's a good thing that Memphis doesn't play Army this year.
Oh, God.
They
go 0-2 against America. That's for sure.
That conference is so terrible, and we haven't talked about it, and it's probably not our show to talk about, but like Memphis, like, bro,
come on, bro,
you can't stay here.
You fumbled the bag, man. Absolutely. All right, so we're going to transition to NFL. Drew, we always start with our real versus counterfeit in college football. It's now time for our real versus counterfeit in the NFL. You give them to me, I'll give you my thoughts. Hit me with some real and counterfeit NFL takes.
All right, so there's been a lot of hot takes. There's been a lot of surprises so far in the NFL. The biggest surprise, in my opinion, is that the Pittsburgh Steelers are 3-0. And they're 3-0 with a starting quarterback that is Justin Fields. They made 2 quarterback transactions this offseason. They signed or traded for Justin Fields, and they signed Russell Wilson. So, real versus counterfeit. Justin Fields, despite the health of Russell Wilson, I say that slowly because I always want to say Russell Westbrook. And so Justin Fields, despite the health of Russell Wilson, should be the starting quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
That's real. I think he has done enough. Again, the Steelers have, I think, 2 offensive touchdowns this season, but they're 3-0. They're basically riding that defense, who I have in fantasy, and I also am riding this year. But I think of the 2 options, I as long as Mike Tomlin is there, they're going to win 8 games. And I think Justin Fields is going to do just enough to keep that starting job. I think that's real, that he will be the starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers all season.
I think you're right. I think you've got to ride the hot hand, and it's not like you've got Joe Montana coming off of a knee injury here. You've got Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
All right, my second one. There were, I'm looking at here, 4, 5, 6. There were 6 quarterbacks taken in the first round of the NFL draft. Those quarterbacks are Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, Michael Penix Jr., J.J. McCarthy, and Bo Nix. 3 of which are starting. I've started every game this year, that being Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, and Bo Nix. So my question for you is, after Monday night's performance, a legendary performance, or Monday night's performance with a big win, Washington, the Commanders beating Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals on a beautiful last possession go route.
Gutsy,
by Jaden Daniels. Real or counterfeit, Buckets? Jaden Daniels will be the best quarterback taken in the first round of the 2024 NFL draft.
That's real by a mile. It's not going to be Drake May. It's not going to be Caleb Williams and nothing else because his offensive line is so bad. No, I'm just that O-line is so bad.
I'm not talking about this season. I'm talking about
like when was the last time a quarterback went to Chicago and was successful? Like it ain't going to be Caleb Williams. He hasn't done a lot for me to make me think that he's got it. But Jaden Daniels grew up Monday night. Had some stones, made some big time throws, big time runs. For me, I have him in my family fantasy league, and at halftime he had 5 points, and I was going to lose. And he finished the game with almost 40 points, and I won the week. That is absolutely real. That Jaden Daniels will be the best of the bunch.
Okay, I'm gonna go really out here now. Okay, there's a quarterback starting for a 3-0 franchise in the NFL. Who's completing 68% of his passes with 8 touchdowns and 2 picks through 3 games. His name is Samuel Darnold of the Minnesota Vikings, the journeyman, the former Jet.
Yeah.
Sam Darnold is this year's MVP.
I might give him like comeback player of the year, but that's counterfeit that he's going to be the MVP.
I wrote that and I was like, I should have made this comeback player of the year, but I think Sam Darnold is a real interesting case if this lasts throughout the whole season, because if you go look, it's a very like how you're brought up in this league. Look at Bryce Young. Okay.
This
is a lightning bolt kind of. You got to catch lightning in a bottle sometimes. And if you go to these teams that have historically stunk and they always take quarterbacks in the first round, Sam Darnold has played for the New York Jets and the Carolina Panthers.
Yep.
And he goes to San Francisco and he's a bench player for there. He never really gets in. But then he goes and has one off season with McConnell up in Minnesota, who is a really good quarterback
QB whisperer, man. Yeah, absolutely.
If he actually turned out to be awesome, it's going to make folks like, if it's possible, Adam Gase look worse.
Yeah.
Or whoever was the coach at Carolina a couple years ago.
Yeah,
I guess
been so many of them.
Rivera, you know.
Yeah, or Matt Rule, one of the
Matt
two.
Rule, yeah. And so I just feel like if this lasts, man, you've got to really look at the environment in which you're putting these quarterbacks in. And Sam Darnold, it's very possible, and I'm almost ready to say it, that he needed a
good coach,
a warmer greeting. Yeah. You know, he needed a warmer welcome with softer hands, not thrown into the deep end.
And I think we need to talk about Kevin Connell if that's the case, because he revived, Kirk Shiesty, revamped Kirk Shiesty in Minnesota, and then he's doing the same to Sam Darnold. He got good mileage out of Teddy Bridgewater on the back end of his career. Like, I think we need to have a conversation about Kevin Connell if Sam Darnold continues to be awesome.
That's true. Last one. Travis Kelce spent way too much time on the Eras Tour and now sucks at football. Real or counterfeit?
That might be real, man. He has not looked good. I think it's either that or, he went and he tried his hand at acting. He's in that new show like Grotesque or something that Maggie and I started tonight. He acts in it. It's like a spinoff like American Horror Story, kind of in that vein. He went and was acting. He was chasing Taylor Swift all over the globe. He doesn't look like he's a shell of himself. And I saw him this morning on the NFL Network. They were talking about I think they talked about on ESPN too. Like, does Pat Mahomes need him to be awesome to three-peat? Do they need him to come back? And I mean, if they keep getting help from the refs, maybe not. But I think he's a lot of that offense in Kansas City, and I think he looks a step slow. I don't know if it's the Eras Tour fault, but I think it's real that Travis Kelce might be.
The question is real or counterfeit. Do you blame Taylor Swift?
Real, absolutely. We blame Taylor Swift here. Real,
okay.
Real.
So, that's all I've got for real versus counterfeit NFL edition.
Well, attaboy. Well, listen, in the NFL, we also talk about, we're big stock market guys around here, obviously. So we look at the market and we see that, when a bull market is coming, stocks are trending up and things are looking good. In a bear market, we're heading towards a recession, and nobody likes that. Everybody gets real finicky with their money.
It's
so we're here to give you
everything's a bear market.
That's it. Exactly right. I was talking today at the FedEx store. They were talking about how people are shipping less packages, which is not a good thing. That's pointing towards a recession. So we're clearly in a bear market right now. But here we're talking about things that matter, and that's fantasy football.
Absolutely.
Whose stock is rising in fantasy football? Whose stock is falling? Uncle Buck, I'll give you the floor first. Okay. What are you bullish on? What's your bull here? Whose stock is rising for you?
Well, I kind of set you up. And part of a bull market, you get in when it's a bear market, and you just hope it turns into a bull market and blast through the roof. And right now, like, if I could just buy low, my fantasy team is terrible right now.
Yeah.
And so, like, if somebody wants to give me a sweetheart deal for one Travis Kelce, I'm taking it. There's just way too much there's way too much information, way too much data that shows that he's really good. And 3 games into this season, they're 3-0 and they're winning, but they're not winning convincingly. And they are not. He just doesn't have it right now. He's not really getting the ball. He's not making a fantasy impact at all. And I just don't see a situation with all the historical data that we've got that Travis Kelce doesn't start becoming a true tight end 1 again for fantasy football. I can't, my mind can't compute it. Maybe I'm just being stubborn and I'm just behind the curve here, but like, I just can't compute it. This team is good. The offense is fine. Yes, they're getting a lot of help from the referees, and they probably should have lost that game last week. But Travis Kelce is just really good, and his connection and the way that him and Patrick Mahomes are so in sync, that didn't stop. And so it's going to come back up. And I kind of set you up hoping that you would blame Taylor Swift and say that Travis Kelce sucks, just so I could say, like, I'll trade for him. You know?
Yeah. So for me, I am bullish on Jaden Daniels. Like, kind of talked about him earlier. He showed signs, like, it was one game, but like, Drew, he made some grown man throws. He made some big boy decisions. He's so much smarter in the NFL. We watched him get beat to a pulp at LSU, and he is getting out of bounds. He's getting down. He's throwing the ball. Like, he is really, you can tell he's taking it serious, that he needs to protect his body. And I am bullish on Jaden Daniels. I think I said it at the beginning of this show before football season started. I said on the Daily Grind, I was upset I didn't get him in our friend league, our fantasy football league. He's just in a good, like, it's weird to say, but he's in a good situation in Washington. He's got a couple good running backs in Eckler when he's healthy, and Brown Robinson. Terry McLaurin has finally got a quarterback that can throw the ball. And like that deep ball he threw to him, it put him beautiful. First time in his career he's been able to catch a ball in stride for a touchdown. I think Jaden Daniels is going to be great this year. I think he's going to have a big year.
That's a no-brainer. I just have a problem putting that. I mean, the stock's soaring, but I mean, you're buying high on him right now. Like, you're spending a lot of money to get a Jaden Daniels stock right now.
For sure. And I think it's going to be worth it. I think it's going to hold. I don't see a major crash coming. There's going to be some rookie bumps for sure. They're going to play some good teams that they're going to have some bumps. Cincinnati's still trying to figure out who they are. I saw something the other day. Don't cancel us. But on Twitter, it said, ever since Joe Burrow started dressing like a lesbian, they're 0-3.
I saw someone say that he looked like he shopped in the closet of Paige Beckers.
Somebody compared him to Ellen DeGeneres the other day. Like, the jokes are writing themselves right now with his bleach blonde hair. But regardless, I think that it was a good win, and that's a good win for Jaden Daniels. I'm bullish on Jaden Daniels.
I like that because he's got a rushing floor too. He's in his first 3 games, he's rushed for 16, 10, and 12 different times for 88, 44, and 39 yards, 3 rushing touchdowns on the season. He is quarterback 2 in fantasy right now. And so, Jaden Daniels through the roof, man.
I like it, but I like that those carries are going down. He went 16, 12, 14 in carries. So he's carrying the ball less. He's throwing the ball more. He's being more selective with it. And I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah. So for me, my bear market, the one that I'm not ready to buy in yet. I don't know if you saw the stat line for my man Jawan Jennings last week. He led all of fantasy football last week.
50 some odd points.
Like, it was like 43 points of all the stats, because I wrote down a lot for for him. I didn't write down the fantasy football.
It was like 46.8 or something. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, so he ended up on the season, he's got 63.6 fantasy points. Last week he had 46.5. So last week he had 11 receptions on 12 targets for 175 yards and 3 touchdowns. I mean, nuclear, absolutely nuclear. In a 49ers loss, given, and a 49ers loss to the Rams, who's also hurt. But the reason why I'm not going and spending a lot of fab money or high waiver priority on Jawan Jennings right now is because that game was without Deebo Samuel, without Christian McCaffrey catching balls out of the backfield, and Jordan Mason just hadn't been catching a lot of balls. And so, who else are you going to throw to? Brandon Ayuk, So, Brock Purdy threw several passes, I'm sure, completed a lot of them, but he's only got 2 targets. Brandon Ayuk had 10 targets on Sunday. Jawan Jennings had 12. That's probably all 22 passes that were attempted by Brock Purdy.
Except for like 4 to George Kittle.
No, George Kittle was out. I forgot.
That's right. He didn't play Sunday.
George Kittle didn't play either.
And
so I'm not buying a lot of stock on Jawan Jennings unless it's a multi-week injury for both Deebo and George Kittle, which I don't think it is.
It is for Deebo. He's missed the last couple of weeks. I've got him in fantasy. They're saying it's going to be another 2 weeks before he comes back. But Kittle should be back.
Doubtful right now for week 4.
Yeah, which is not a great designation. But it's that doubtful leads to questionable.
But it's not
questionable.
The IR.
Yeah, doubtful leads to questionable, and questionable means you play. So. For me, I've got 2. I cheated. I got 2. One's kind of tongue in cheek. Right now, I am out on any defense that faces Sam Darnold because my boy is throwing lasers in Minnesota. I had that queued up before we went on that dialogue about him. But Sam Darnold's playing great football. He's got a great target in Jettas. Aaron Jones has had a career revitalization up there and run the ball very effectively. And Drew, they don't even have probably his best, most comfortable target in TJ Hawkinson. He hasn't played yet because he's out. He'll be back midway through the season. He's only going to get more weapons. And if Sam Darnold can continue this, I think Kevin Connell needs to be in the real conversation for Coach of the Year.
He will run away with it.
Absolutely. And you need to fade any defense that is facing Sam Darnold. But that's low-hanging fruit, right? Defense doesn't super matter in fantasy football. You might get 11 points in a good week. For me, I am not buying anybody that wears a Cincinnati Bengals uniform on offense. Joe Burrow has not looked the same. That wrist, I think, is bothering him more because they show him every game flexing his hand, moving his wrist, shaking it out. Jamar Chase looks like a dude that could care less. When the team came out on the field this past week, Drew, I don't know if you saw it after halftime when they were playing Monday night against the Commanders. Everybody else is jogging, kind of getting hyped up, patting each other on their back. He walks out with no helmet, just dead face, walks out. Him and Joe Burrow have gotten into it multiple times on the sideline. Feels like Zach Taylor's about to lose that locker room, and it doesn't look good for anybody there right now. That offense is chaotic. They're not moving the ball well. Bear market, stock crashing for me. I'm not buying anything on Cincinnati's offense right now.
Well, if anybody listening to this agrees with Rusty, who also happens to play fantasy football in the League of Avengers, I will take Jamar Chase off your hands because Rusty's deplorable performance looked like 6 receptions for 118 yards and 2 touchdowns.
One great game, but I'm talking about body language and all. Like, sure, but what has he done the other weeks? What has he done the other weeks?
I understand the skepticism. I was a member of the skeptic community when it comes to a guy that doesn't get his money that he feel like he's owed. However, he did just go out there, 6 receptions, 120 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And
the week before, he had 4 for 35.
Mystic Dan Campbell needs that production.
He had 4 for 35 the week before against Kansas City, a decent secondary. And, he'll probably feast this weekend against Carolina. Then you got Baltimore, and we'll see what he does in that game. But I don't know. That offense seems dysfunctional, too hot and cold for me, especially if Joe Burrow's not going to be healthy. That makes me nervous.
Rest of career, Joe Burrow or Trevor Lawrence?
Oh, gosh. Oh, that's
It's easy for me.
I mean, it's Joe Burrow. It
Yeah.
is if he's healthy, but if he's not healthy, I mean, it's even Joe Burrow. If he learns how to throw left-handed, will have a better career than Trevor Lawrence.
You're too hard on Trevor Lawrence. Of the there are 3 0-3 teams left in the NFL. Which quarterback would you rather have? Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, or your mayonnaise boy?
It ain't mayonnaise boy.
Yeah, mayonnaise boy.
He needs to go
3,
self-cologne.
and it's not close. Yeah,
he's so bad, man. As bad as Trevor Lawrence is, mayonnaise boy is worse, man. It's awful.
Yeah. So
well, the Titans might go. The Titans might win 2 games all year, and that's it.
Listen, that if they win 2 games, it's because their defense scored 14 points.
I mean, that's it, man. I've got Calvin Ridley in fantasy, and I
wanted him. I'm glad you got him.
They need to hand him the ball. Let's run end rounds like every third play to Calvin Ridley and just make him just do something.
Yeah.
Well, listen, man, it's a great show. We're an hour and 17 in. We're trying to keep these more concise, and I'm proud of us in our efforts. We're doing it. We're giving good information at a good pace, but we're not drowning people in 1.5 hour, 2-hour shows. So, man, this was a blast. As always, check us out on Instagram and Twitter. This week will be the week that I finally put our picks against the spread up on Instagram. I keep saying I'm going to do it, and I forget. I'm doing it this Saturday. Vote who you think is going to win against the spread. We'll give you a shout out if you get them all right next week. Follow us on Twitter, bluffcitymedia.co. Check out Bluff City Media. Look, you're here. You're watching the show. You've been listening to us blabber for 1 hour and 17 minutes. Click subscribe. Turn notifications on so you can know when new shows drop. Hang out with us here each week. Drew, I enjoyed it, buddy, man. This was a blast as always, sir. But, hey, listen, we gave you fantasy advice. We gave you against the spread advice. Take it at your own risk. It is well known that you fade Rusty around here. If you're a fan of the OG show, you know you fade Rusty. So there are no refunds for what you hear on the $2 Sports Show.
That's right. Because with the $2, you always get what you pay for. Have a good weekend, everybody. We'll see you next Friday.
Thank you for listening to the $2 Sports Show. If you enjoyed this episode, leave a rating and a review wherever you download your podcasts. Also, like and subscribe to Bluff City Media's YouTube page. For comprehensive coverage of all things Memphis sports, head over to www.bluffcitymedia.co and find out how you can become an insider. We will see you back here next time.